In the world, there are 7.3 billion people. In English-speaking countries, there are 65 million musicians. At Berklee College of Music in Boston, Massachusetts, one of the top contemporary music colleges in the world, there are 4,200 students. And in 2009, there was one Zan, lost, unsure of where to begin. I'm Zan, co-founder of Musiqli, a digital discovery platform for the music industry, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about the application of technology in the music industry. So let's go back for a second to talk about Lost Zan. So you can imagine in a music college, 4,500 students, that's a lot of people, all packed in. Our first year, there were 900 students to start off with. You know, you're meeting people every single day. I went through my entire first year without meeting a single person who loved the genre of music that I loved, which is choral music, which is what you just heard. And I felt really lost. I didn't know, I became completely immersed in college. I did all of the required activities. I tried lots of different things. But I didn't know what I was going to get out of Berklee. So I decided to take 8 months off of college and go to Europe and try to search for what it is that I was meant to do. So I went to lots of different countries and I met lots of different people. And it was on one of my last trips during that 8 months away that I went to Cambridge and I went to a vocal workshop. And I sat in King's Chapel and I sang with a couple of hundred people who all loved choral music. And I had a completely out-of-body experience. And I realized that there probably were people at Berklee who were choral musicians, who loved choral music, maybe wanted to sing in a choir or something. And maybe they were going through the same struggle. And the only way I was going to figure that out is if I went back. But the journey was not about changing my pathway, but about adapting to my surroundings. So I went back to Berklee, and I started my own choir, and I went to all the teachers that I had, and I sent them all emails, and I said, could you please tell all of your students about this? I came and talked to a bunch of the classes. I put posters all over the school. I emailed as many people as possible, and I got 60 responses. I got 60 emails of people saying, not just, man, that's really cool, I'd love to audition, but I have been waiting for somebody to start a choir. Choral music changed my life, and that's why I'm at Berklee. I've been waiting for somebody to have the same story as me, for somebody to start something. And it just makes you think now, what if there was technology that could do that for you? What if there was a technology that could match a musician to another musician who had the similar interests, similar background, and that's part of the story of Musiqli. So the creative industries in the UK is a fast-growing industry, thriving. There's 76.9 billion pounds represented in the UK economy in the creative industries, a 9.9% growth from 2012 to 2013. Creative industries represents 5.6% of jobs in the UK, and we are represented as world leaders in the creative industries. Huge opportunity, and I think the opportunity is growing more and more every single day. Top analysts say that the growth in the creative industries are actually directly to do with digital entrepreneurship and digital technology. And so here's an opportunity to how do we step forward in this new space. So Musiqli fits into that quite nicely. And I think in the next couple of years, we'll see a huge rise in not just investment in the industry, but interest. And they say that it's actually there's going to be an additional 5 billion pounds added to UK economy because of the creative industries and technology in the next year. So let's just for a second, take a look at the current scene of the music industry, right? So we have streaming, video, YouTube, Spotify, Tidal, iTunes, lots of platforms that make it possible for you to listen to music at your work, at home, in your car. You can take those streaming websites and take them with you and download things onto your iPhone. I know I have my iPhone with me at all times possible. And so the accessibility of music has become, what's the word I'm looking for, unparalleled in the last 10 years since technology has kind of come into the scene. So now that we have this world of, you can go onto the internet and you can ask the internet any question at all in any number of topics. Where does one start? Where does one start by saying, okay, I'm a choral musician and I love choral music and I want to sing. I've moved to a new place. Where do I start? Because I've asked myself that question a lot of times, because a lot of people have told me that I should choose a new genre to listen to, because who really listens to choral music? Turns out quite a lot of people, we've spent the last year doing research on this, quite a lot of people like choral music in this world. So we've decided to use this as an opportunity to connect people all over the world. I think that the most important application of technology currently is in the ability to use data to create a more personalized experience for people in the world. So using the internet not as a way to escape the real world, but as a way to become more attached to your surroundings, to develop further communities, to encourage new opportunities amongst the people around you. So with looking at data in the music industry, I think people start to think, what are the small bits of data that you can use? What is the real value? Because who really cares how old somebody is, or what city they live in, or how old they are? I think I just said that. How old they are, what instrument they play, what's their caliber level? Well, actually, if you capture all of those little tiny bits of data, you can do a whole world of good. Let's take, for an example, you have 15 cellists living in Manchester, and they're all between the ages of 20 and 23, right? So they're all uni students, and none of them have a teacher, because there are no cellist teachers, apparently, in Manchester. And so what do? Well, now we know that there are 15 students, aged 20, who want to have a teacher, but don't have a teacher. So what can our technology do? But we can match teachers to those students. You have 200 choral singers living in Cambridge. I think people know that. So let's take somewhere a little more rural. Let's go to the north of Scotland, and you've got 5 choirs living in the sticks, very far away from each other, miles and miles apart. They each want to put on a concert, but there aren't enough people to come to each individual concert, because the cost of putting on a concert is huge. But what if those 5 choirs came together and put on a concert together? What if they combined all those audiences? How many more people would listen to all of their music? Technology is an opportunity to connect people on a whole new scale. And one step further from that, you can, in bigger places, or bigger places that are more spread out cities, you can build new schools, you can host lots of workshops, you can cater information directly to people. So our technology can say, they know that I love choral music, and no matter where I go in the world, I know that I can find workshops, I can find opportunities to work with new musicians, I can start a new choir, I can join a new choir, I can listen to new people performing, maybe in crazy places. Let's talk about ensembles who want to play in the bus stop, down the street, but they don't want to play in a concert hall. How do you advertise that? On Facebook? What, you put on a Facebook and you say, I want to do a show on a bus stop? Come at me, people. How do you create that opportunity? And so what you need is a space that's completely and solely focused on catering to that audience. And so that's what we're doing at Musiqli. So I began to look into data. I'd like to go into the fine detail just a little bit more. And everywhere I go on the internet now, I start to take a look at where my personal data is taken and what repercussions that might have for other things. I was on Amazon the other day looking at this book about Elizabethan music, and it was £60, and I was like, I can't afford £60 to pay for this book. So went off, did something in town, came back, checked my Facebook, and suddenly all over my Facebook is, you want this book? Don't you want this book? And I thought, how does Facebook know what I was on in Amazon? Now, that's an application of technology into my personal life in a way to say, we know that you want this thing. Let's just remind you of that. Let's just open a new opportunity for you. Now, obviously, don't remind me about the book that I really want that I can't afford to buy. But, you know, what about this book? What about in 3 months when I can afford to buy it and that comes back up? That is of huge value to me. And I think that the more our whole entire industry is data-centric, and the quicker that we can embrace that, the faster the industry will continue to propel forward. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the music industry as a whole. I think that, and I'm sure that, how many people here work in the digital space? About half, okay. So I'm sure that you know that when you're creating something from your house, right? So you're sitting at home and you're like, I want to create something that's great. You were just talking about this in Viquo. You know, you want to create something that's applicable outside of your house, right? To more than just the people in your community. How do you do that? How do you know what will be useful for people? I mean, you can ask, but I think even deeper than that, you need to know what inspires the people that you're creating technology for, what motivates them, what drives them, not just what do they do, not just, well, I work in, you know, digital technology and music, but that my interests are choral music, that even further past that, you know, I'm in my mid-20s and I love choral music and I love early polyphony, you know, and I love going to really weird early polyphony concerts. Now that is something that's incredibly valued to the company, because then they know, or we know, that anytime that there's kind of a weird show around anything, that I'll probably go to that, so long as I'm around. And so getting inside the mindset of your users as much as possible is extremely important. So my co-founders, Stephen Carowin and I, have spent the last 18 months talking to musicians, figuring out what drives them, what motivates them, what are their pain points. Is it funding your projects? Is it promotional? Is it getting audiences to your concerts? Is it CD sales? Do people even buy CDs anymore? Do you buy CDs? I buy CDs. Who here buys CDs? Hey, that's pretty good. He's thinking about not buying CDs anymore. Is that like you're teetering off the edge? You used to buy CDs and no longer. So this goes back to, how do you access the data that the industry needs? Talking to people. I think that as much as digital technology is really important to propel us forward, it's important to also continue to incorporate those personal situations, whether it's setting out surveys. The better way to really find out how somebody works is go and have a coffee, go and set up a workshop, go and set up a dinner, go and talk to them in person, find out what drives them. So let's see. Sorry, I write notes in all different directions, so this isn't very useful for this situation. Okay, so I think that we are fortunate because we are driven by data, we are driven by digital, we're driven by our individual passions, which in this case is music. And suddenly there's this embrace of digital technology in an industry that up until this point has been really afraid of what that might mean. And I think that when you have something that is exciting and people are passionate in that area, there's a real opportunity. But how do you filter through the noise? How do you, as an entrepreneur, how do you, as a musician, how do you, as a person interested in anything, filter through the billions and billions and billions of websites that exist and people, and you know, how does anybody do anything? I mean, when you think about, you know, the world, how does somebody sit at home and think, this is what I want to do today? Because there are like a million things that you can do, right? And I think that it's creating, so that, I mean, that's kind of a tangent thought, but you know, how do you reel everything back in, I guess is my point, is I'm completely excited but also overwhelmed at the potential in information and data and passion that exists, because there's so much opportunity. Where does one start? So we've decided to combine all of these elements. And so at Musiqli, we match musicians to other musicians and other venues and opportunities and organizations and events and resources to provide a conversation directly in your or our industry. We're really fortunate because we were funded or supported by the Welsh government in their DDF program, which a lot of the digital, or all of the digital dozen have been, I think. We spend a lot of time talking to people, so we'd love to hear if any of you want to get involved, want to use the technology, want to be part of our testers. We have adopted an environment of collaboration, not just in what we do at Musiqli, not just in what we encourage with our users, but actually how we exist as a company. I think it's important in an industry that is thriving and sprinting forwards in an industry and in the global economy to collaborate and work together to create something that has true and real impact. And I think that data is at the center of that impact. And so if there are any organizations out there that are keen to collaborate, I say, jump on the ship, let's all do it together, because here's an opportunity, and I think that not just for our users, but for the industry, we should all be doing this together. Thank you very much.